Get the cream, precious metals or the crypto things. Your bars are light like the one that's on a Smith machine. But my Maxwell and I ain't speaking about the pretty wings. Watch a potty.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. I am your host, MagMongoSlade. Today, I fell down a rabbit hole and I'm dragging you down with me. Dani Palmer, NXT Superstars, posted on her Instagram a conspiracy theory about the government controlling the weather. She was ridiculed online for this, but it just made me look into things. And I found some very interesting stuff that would make you raise your eyebrow. But that doesn't mean you have to believe it. So what did she post? Let's start with Dani Palmer. What did she post? She posted, praying for Florida. Stay alert and do your own research. But to me, something is fishy. Research cloud seeding. Research weather wars. Keep notes of the states being affected. Solid red states. 36 days until Election Day. United States Postal Service has suspended service to many zip codes due to the storm. In Georgia, 42 zip codes. North Carolina, 39 zip codes. Tennessee, 19 zip codes. So she is essentially saying that due to these hurricanes that have been pummeling Carolina and Florida and other states, I wish everybody well who stays in those areas, by the way, that this is some kind of government weather modification program. And of course, this led to her getting absolutely lambasted on social media. But I'm not one to lambast people for things that is a little bit silly. So this sounds ridiculous to me, clearly. But then I fell down the rabbit hole of weather modification. And I found out that, hey, weather modification has been going on for 50 years. They've been trying to modify the weather for 50 years. Let's go back to 1972. There's a bunch of socialists who refer to themselves as the Science for Vietnam, aka Science for the People, or the Chicago Collective. In 1972, they put out a paper in which they blamed the United States government for manipulating the weather in Vietnam and Laos and what was called Operation Popeye, which is a real thing, by the way. And they claim that these Operation Popeye caused flooding in Laotian villages, causing all sorts of damage, and that weather modification was the United States government's new way of declaring or engaging in war in the third world. In 1979, the National Weather Modification Policies and Programs was given to the United States Department of Commerce. This was in November 1979. And this is a 147-page document detailing weather modification programs that the government was involved with almost 50 years ago. Part of this document says, quote, the board retained the services of 20 consultants and 6 contractors to prepare study papers on issues and problems associated with weather modification. It met 12 times in 7 states in the District of Columbia between May 1977 and June 1978. Board members heard testimony from over 100 individuals and groups, both from this country and abroad. So it's not just the United States that's been engaging in weather modifications. It's also been other countries, so no doubt our Western neighbors or brethren like, the Canadians, the French, the English, no doubt they're in on this as well. So he says they spent many hours reading documents, drafting statements, weighing the contributions from consultants, and discussing the issues in public sessions. The board's report was issued in July 1978 and contains a comprehensive discussion of the current status of weather modification science, technology, and national and international regulation. The report is commendable, not only because of its artistry and thoroughness, but also because it was primarily a product of the members themselves rather than the board staff. And then it goes into all these different things. And it says later This report is based on the documents and studies underlying the board's report and the studies and expertise of the scientists of the Department of Commerce's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or the NOAA, and other government agencies who are engaged in atmospheric and weather modification research and in international atmospheric science activities. So the United States government does have an organ which engages in weather modification. So let's go to the NOAA and let's go to their website. So this is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, library.noaa.gov. That means it's the United States. It says, what role does NOAA play in weather modification? The response was, companies that intend to engage in weather modification activities within the United States are required by the Weather Modification Act of 1976 to provide a report to the administrator of the NOAA at least 10 days prior to undertaking the activity. Those reports are filed with the Weather Program Office and may be found on the NOAA library website. So there are private companies as well as public companies engaging in weather modification. Okay. Now it does say that NOAA does not research or conduct weather modification experiments, but they are the overseer of weather modification. So, but let's talk about cloud seeding. She talked about, cloud seeding. What is that? So it says, these are the things that you have to report to the NOAA if you're going to do them. One is seeding or dispersing of any substance into clouds or fog to alter drop size distribution, produce ice crystals or coagulation of droplets, alter the development of hail or lightning, or influence in any way the natural development cycles of clouds or their environment. So they're telling you that this stuff is possible and that you can do it, but you have to report that you're doing it. Now, did I look to see if anybody reported it? No, I'm too lazy. But here is the definition of cloud seeding. It says cloud seeding requires the release of chemicals in the atmosphere in an effort to have water condense or freeze on them and become heavy enough to produce rain. Cloud seeding is considered a weather modification activity. NOAA does not regulate cloud seeding activities, but does collect information on such activities performed in the United States through the requirements for reporting in the Weather Modification and Reporting Act. In other words, there are people modifying our weather. There are people doing this. Now, not to go into the conspiracy mode, conspiracy theory, we don't have to do that because in 2022, people told you that they were modifying the weather. This is from CNBC, December 17, 2022. How states across the West are using cloud seeding to make it rain. Since cloud seeding has been around since the 1940s, it became widespread of late as the West battles a drought of historic proportions. States, utility companies, and even ski resorts are footing the bill. So they're telling you that they have been engaging in weather modifications for 70 or some odd years. And there's good to it. Ski resorts want it to snow more so that they can have people ski more. And if you live in a state that is, unfortunately dealing with drought, hey, cloud seeding could be a good thing. It could make it rain or rain more than usual. Now, to continue, it says, experts say cloud seeding generally yields a 5% to 15% increase in precipitation. It's no cure for drought, but cloud seeding can be an important water management tool. Jason Karkik, a utility analyst and hydrologist with the Turlock Irrigation District in Central California, says, quote, we can't make a storm happen, and we can't create conditions in this storm that are ideal. Those happen naturally. He says we're doing is just taking advantage of existing conditions, naturally occurring conditions, and trying to make the storm, again, more efficient from a water supply perspective. And then they go into how they actually seed clouds, which is kind of boring. But, hey, if you research Operation Popeye, you'll actually see that there was a lot of people who believed in the United States government manipulating the weather in Laos and Vietnam during the Vietnam War. It's a real thing that people believed. In January of 1967, the United States, it says the Office of the Historian, or history.state.gov, has a memorandum from the Deputy Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs to this Secretary of State Rusk. It says the subject is weather modification in North Vietnam and Laos. And in parentheses, Project Popeye. Okay? So the background, it says a test phase of Project Popeye was approved by State and Defense and conducted during October 1966 in a strip of the Lao Panhandle, generally east of the Bolivans Plateau in the valley of the Sekong River. The test was conducted without consultation with Laos authorities, but with Ambassador Sullivan's knowledge and concurrence, and to the best of our knowledge remains unknown to other than a severely limited number of U.S. officials. During the test phase, more than 50 cloud seeding experiments were conducted. The results are viewed by the DoD, or the Department of Defense, as outstandingly successful. Outstandingly successful. 82% of the cloud seeded produced rain within a brief period after seeding, a percentage appreciably higher than normal expectation in the absence of seeding. The amount of rainfall induced by seeding is believed to have been sufficient to have contributed substantially to rendering vehicular routes in this area inoperable. Since the end of the rainy season, the communists have failed to undertake road repairs, and there have been no vehicular traffic. So in other words, they did flood one of the roads in Laos. They successfully flooded a road in Laos using cloud seeding. So it has been used as a weapon before. In one instance, the rainfall continued as the cloud moved eastward across the Vietnam border and inundated a U.S. Special Forces camp with 9 inches of rain in 4 hours. DoD scientists considered that the experiment demonstrated a capacity to raise and maintain rainfall under controlled conditions to the level at which the land is saturated over a sustained period, slowing movement on foot and rendering the operation of vehicles impractical, yes. So, while we here at 3 Count Commentaries do not condone wild conspiracy theories about the United States government controlling the weather and causing these massive hurricanes that are absolutely destroying places like Asheville, North Carolina, and places like Florida, we do not condone the spread of these conspiracy theories. However, it's not as crazy as people think. It is not as off the wall as some would lead you to believe. The government has been engaging in this. Other governments have been engaging in this. Now, if you remember what the guy said, Jason Karkik, he says that we can't create a storm, but we can intensify a storm. Man, that's enough to really send, the bells and whistles going off. Because if you cloud seed during a storm, you intensify the rainfall. This is what they want. Now, is that what's happening? Probably not. I'm willing to say it's probably not happening. But the idea that it could happen, that's reason enough for people to feel that it is happening. Now, and when you're talking about conspiracy theories, And her conspiracy theory that they're trying to flood and drown out all the red staters, that is sort of crazy, you know. But during an election season, that you have these incredible hurricanes. Again, not out of the ordinary. This is hurricane season. They prepare for this pretty much every year. Even though FEMA is giving away all the money to illegal immigrants, it is what it is at this point. All right? So I don't condone what Dani Palmer is talking about. And of course, this continues the Performance Center to QAnon pipeline that a lot of our leftoid friends like to discuss on social media. So I don't really support the idea that there's targeted hurricane weapons or, you know, weather wars and all this kind of stuff. But this stuff's been going on for a long time. And this is news to a lot of people, that the government can engage in weather modification and that private businesses may want to engage in weather modification, that states might want to engage in weather modification to prevent drought, to, you know, help grow, you know, grass and things like that so you can have grazing animals so your crops won't fail. These things, they make sense. So just like you say, we can use this to benefit mankind, we can also use this to harm mankind. As we have seen that perhaps that was the first usage of it, is that it was perhaps used to harm people in Vietnam and Laos. So this conspiracy theory isn't just one that is shared by crazy right-wingers. It was also shared by crazy communists. And the crazy communists weren't that crazy. The ones who were paying attention, well, the government said that they were doing it. And they successfully flooded a road in Laos. Did it flood an entire village? Like the Science for Vietnam Collective or whatever they call themselves believe? Did I read this entire 174-page document? No. Did I read everything from every website that I looked at? No. I just looked at what I needed to see. But it's entirely possible that these people are not as crazy as you think. And it's okay for them to say things that are outside of the norm, because they might just be ahead of the curve. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
No one does it better.